Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of The Monster's Den. We've got in the house today for the show all about ranking the film series Underworld. The king is here, Chris Laszlo. We've got Jamie Laszlo and Mr. Paws himself, Craig Kaminski. That's an awesome shirt, my friend.
Thank you.
So we got 5 films. Underworld, of course, starring Kate Beckinsale and lots of other people. This is my little Blu-ray collection with all of them. These films have come out in 4K recently. First film came out in, I don't even remember.
2003.
2003?
19 years.
Yeah, 19 years. Pretty crazy, right? So 5 films. We've all either rewatched them or some of these we may know really well. So we've put them in the order of our preference. So we'll have Chris kick us off with his number 5 and we'll go round and round so we get to our number 1. So what do you got at number 5, Chris?
Okay. Yeah, this was interesting because I've seen them all. I saw the first 3 in the theater and maybe the 4th one. I'm really not sure. I can't remember. I know I did not see the 5th one in the theater.
No.
And I
Did it
bought a
even
couple
play in the
of them.
theater? Like, did it even have a theatrical run?
It did.
Yeah. I
But
saw it on video. So
that was the lowest box office of the 4. And yeah, I rewatched all of them, which was interesting because particularly the last 2 are very unmemorable. And yeah, my least favorite of the 5 films is the final movie, Underworld Blood Wars, which came out in 2016. Yeah, this was the least financially successful of the series. It had a $35 million production budget and did $50 million in America, $81 million worldwide. Of course, none of that includes advertising.
Marketing, yeah.
So, any marketing costs. So, yeah, not great financially, which is probably why we haven't had Underworld 6 yet. But it's a terrible movie. Without talking too much on the 4th movie, in the 4th movie, they gave Celine a daughter. That's the daughter of the vampire Celine and Michael the werewolf. If you haven't seen the Underworld movies, a quick wrap up. It's basically Romeo versus Juliet, but Romeo is a werewolf and Juliet is a vampire, and that's it. They've been at war for hundreds of years. And the public doesn't know about it early on. The 4th movie, they decide to give Celine, they knock her out for 12 years, and she gets a daughter, and a bunch of shit happens. But this is the 5th movie. So movie number 5 starts fairly soon after number 4, but we find out, spoiler alert, that the Michael character, who is Romeo, he's dead, so he's not in the movie. The daughter character, which was kind of a cool character that was in the 4th movie, they talk about her the whole movie, but she's not in this movie at all. The werewolves had a cool, very different kind of look to them. They were
Scaly kind of right? Like
and they were kind of thin, but also bulky at the same time. Like they had like big, almost like horse heads. But they were guys in suits, and it looked really good. And as the series went on, I mean, it started with the original, but more and more they relied way too heavily on CGI werewolves. And it looks like ass. I mean, it looks like the worst, shittiest video game. And like by the time we get to part 5, it's like 90% CGI werewolves and like 10% a guy in the suit. And like literally sometimes it'll cut to the guy in the suit and I'll be like, oh Jesus, that looks so much better. And then it cuts back to the shitty cartoon and I'm like, this sucks. Not to mention too, that by the time we get to the 5th movie, I think the whole werewolves versus vampire thing is just completely boring and burnt out. And I'm like, I'm watching the movie and I'm like, the fucking producers named their series Underworld. They could have gone in any direction. They could have brought in zombies, mummies, aliens, Frankensteins, ghosts, gargoyles, demons, whatever. Like, what the fuck ever. But nope. They kept it to just the werewolves and the vampires. And I'm like, man, this is so fucking boring. And I'm like, the 4th movie should have been the end of the werewolf vampire war. And the 5th movie You want to keep it going? There's a new menace that's either a zombie or a gargoyle or Godzilla, and now the former enemies, the vampires and the werewolves, have to team up with each other to fight this new menace. And that's how you keep the series going.
Because they talked about doing that whole Resident Evil tie-in thing, right?
Yes.
That was proposed, and that would have made more sense.
Absolutely.
Get some life into both franchises, for crying out loud, right?
Totally. There was talk of a Resident Evil crossover. That never happened. Apparently, there was talk of that movie I, Frankenstein, because one of the guy that produced it was connected to Underworld, and there was even talk of a Blade crossover.
Yeah.
None of them happened. I mean, to me, this is Part 5 is the absolute definition of a series that has 100% run out of steam.
Yeah.
And who knows if we'll ever get a Part 6, but yeah, it was a tough sit through. I fell asleep on it like 3-4 times. And I keep going back, and I was like, I'm not even bothering. This is just fucking terrible. And then it's got that weird ending that doesn't even make sense. Like she's talking about, it's like, who even cares? We never see the daughter. It's a mess.
No. They spent two episodes either constantly talking about Michael and you don't see him, or talking about the daughter that you don't see her, and they spent that whole fourth movie with the daughter, and then she's nowhere to be found in the fifth.
Nowhere to be in the fifth one. And I looked it up. Like, why did Scott Speedman stop making the Underworld movies? And there's no answer. Nobody has ever commented, including him, as to why he did it. But maybe that's his thing, because he also was on some kind of TV show.
Yeah, he was.
I can't remember what it was, but he left the TV show and also never commented. So maybe he's just that kind of guy. Although I did read also that he got injured on the set of Underworld 2, which sucks in itself. So maybe he's like, hey, you know what? Fuck this. I'm a good-looking guy. I don't need to get smacked in the head with a dumbbell plastic fucking Frankenstein or werewolf or whatever the fuck it was. So who knows? But yeah, of these movies, yeah, I think number 5 is the worst.
Jamie.
Yes, I agree. Number 5. I got the box set here, by the way, in 4K. And they look really good in 4K.
I'm sure it looks great. Yeah, I mean the regular movie looks great too.
And this one looks great. It does. But what is it? Blood Wars. Yeah, it's pretty awful. I did see it in theater. And watching it again, I was like, maybe it's not going to be as bad as I remember. And it starts with an okay fight scene, and then it's straight downhill from there. I mean, it has all the elements of an Underworld movie. You're watching an Underworld movie, but it's got boring characters, a boring villain, messy fight scenes. You got Charles Dance in 2 of these movies, wasted both times. Nothing to sink his teeth into as an actor, and he's killed off real quick in this one, and he's in it for like 30 seconds in the one before this. You got Theo James in it, and he looks like he belongs. He's a pretty boy. He looks like he belongs in a Twilight movie more than an Underworld movie. And the way it ends, Chris, you're talking about the way it ends. You got 5. You're 5 movies in. This is the last movie. He literally tells the werewolves to go home, and they turn around and go home. And that's your big epic ending. He's right. Let's go home. And that's it. And then the stupid narration comes in.
Yeah. And I had to rewind the narration. I'm like, what is she talking about?
Yeah.
There is no past. There's no future. There's only now.
There's always that crappy crap nonsense that she says. They make it sound like she's saying something important, but she's not. No. I'll tell you the one star of this movie. There's an actress in here, Daisy Head, and her tongue is the star of this movie.
Holy shit. Oh my God, you are 100% right.
There is a scene where she licks a sword, and that tongue, I don't know if Daisy's middle name is Givesgood, but it should be.
Jamie, when I watched that scene last night, I said to myself, is that tongue real or is that CGI? Because it was like Gene Simmons, but better.
Yeah, and with a couple curves in it, and I don't know if it's real or not, but I'm not even going to Google if it's real or not, because I don't think that it's real.
Yeah. But I was thinking she was probably a very popular girl in high school if it was real.
Yes.
All right. Craig, how about you?
Right. I had never seen any of these movies before. I'm aware I've never. And
where have you been?
I'm aware of their existence, but I just for
Wow.
whatever reason I never watched these. I heard of them, and yeah, and
I never saw any of the Resident Evil movies, so
I don't know if I've seen them either, or I saw part of one, part of a couple of those. But anyway, so I blew these out over the all 5 movies over the course of 2 days. So I was completely exhausted at the end of the second day of watching these movies. I watched the first two on a Friday, and the second two, the next 3 on a. I watched part 3, then 4, then I went out drinking, and then I watched 5. So this was.
You needed to go out drinking to watch number 5, right?
Well, and before I go in with this, my ranking may fly in the face of what other people is my rank, and so people out there, I'll just say right now, I didn't enjoy any of these movies, and my ranking is going to be as such.
They're very dense movies to watch in a row, and very cold and emotionless.
Yeah.
And very blue. Everything's blue.
Well, that was one.
100%.
That's one of my complaints. Every movie looks like it's just like dipped in ass, and it was just like, oh my God. And there's like no color. All right. Well, anyway, my number 5. I'm starting right away with the. I'm going right away with the first movie. It's the longest, part 1. It's the longest one. It felt like it. I fell asleep at least twice during this on a Friday afternoon after I got done with work, and it's not like I have a tough job. And it was even watching this, I watched 3 of these were on HBO Max, and the other 2 were on Tubi. So I, luckily didn't have to do anything. And ironically, 1, 3, and 4 were on HBO Max. 2 and 5 were the only ones on Tubi, which was kind of weird. But I had to blow these out so quickly because they were expiring on Tubi. So that's why I smashed these in and punished myself in the process. But the explanation for the first movie on HBO Max, it actually says, and I wrote this down, a beautiful vampire caught up in an age-old battle falls in love with one of her enemies. Okay, her and Scott Speedman. Scott Speedman is like a black hole vortex of shit. He has no charisma. They have no chemistry. None. Zero.
No.
None.
It's just like, you're hot, I'm hot. We should like each other, right?
And while I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, I like vampires. I like werewolves. I like hot chicks in leather. I should be having a lot more fun watching this than what I am, and I'm not. I mean, and it's just, it was, then I don't know who to root for. She's a vampire. Okay, vampires are fighting the werewolves. And it's like, okay, well, she's a vampire, so I guess she's the good guy. Then it's like, I feel bad for the werewolves when you hear like their history and everything. Oh, but then the werewolf leader is supposed to be Lucian. He's supposed to be dead. Well, no, but then he's actually alive. He's conspiring with the vampire leader. Oh, let's wake up the elder. Victor, Bill Nighy. What the fuck is he doing in this movie? An actor of him, why? So and he's in what, 2 or 3 of them. So I mean, and then you shouldn't have woken me up. The other guy, you're supposed to wake him up. I'm like, what in the fuck is this is going on? Then it's just, right away, first scene of the movie, there's like a shootout in the train, sequence. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh God, this is Matrix vampires. And I am so not a Matrix guy. Sorry, I'm just not. They don't do it for me. And I hated this movie. I really did. I hated it. And so I was like, oh Christ, I have to watch 4 more of these. So
well, thanks for doing it for the sake of the show.
No, but you know what, I wanted to
shows your dedication.
And again, I want to make clear that I looked up the box office on these. All these movies were probably technically, you would call them successful. I mean, they made 5 of them. They don't make 5 movies because they did badly, and people obviously liked them. But I did take notice that critically, they're not exactly very highly regarded. But I mean, I like plenty of bad movies or things that critics thumb their nose at. So I was really hoping for a little bit more, but we're off to a bad start with the first one. I hated it.
Wow, I'm just shocked. Not
Well,
that
he
you
was
hate it,
drinking during the
that
fifth
that was
one.
the worst
So,
one.
watch
And
it
you
sober.
find
That's
the
your
other
least favorite.
four
Well,
better than the first one.
well, stay tuned for the rest, because that my ire only sort of continues or grows with these, and the praise that I shall give will be faint to these movies.
All right. Hey, not everybody's going to love everything, right?
Yeah, so I heard somebody once say that we all see or hear things differently. I don't know who.
Some guys.
Somebody.
So you're not buying the 4K box set.
No.
Well, I will say I'm a fan of this series. I really enjoy the first three movies quite a bit. I had a really hard time with the last two, like which one to put above the other, because I think that both 4 and 5 are a mess for many different reasons. And I switched them many times over the last week, and I rewatched both of them just a couple of days ago. And I'm like, all right, so I'm going to go against conventional wisdom here and what I probably have thought for the last couple of years. I'm going to go Underworld Awakening, the fourth film, as my number 5, which, Chris kind of hinted at some of the plot here. So this is like 12 years after Evolution, which is the second film. You got Selene and Michael taken away from the human, taken away after the all of a sudden now the humans know the existence of werewolves and Lycans.
Right. That was the big change.
Yeah. So all,
About time.
Meanwhile, in the first couple of movies, man, you don't even see people hardly at all, right? It's just all they do is center on this war between the Lycans and the vampires, which, I love vampires and werewolves. I think for the most part in this series, the werewolves look really good, especially like Chris said, when they are with the, in the costume, with the suits and stuff, they look great. They kind of remind me in a weird way of the kind
of like Dog Soldiers.
Dog Soldiers, that's exactly what I was thinking of. A little bit.
I think this came first, or was that Dog Soldiers first?
I think this came first. Yeah, I think this came first. But very kind of similar because they're tall and thin, and they're
like big heads.
Big heads, yeah. But I mean, some of the werewolves in these films look amazing. Yeah. Some of them really do. And then later in the series, they're, like we talked about before, they're kind of hairless, big heads, and they kind of got away. But anyway, I digress. So meanwhile, basically, humans know about both species. And now the big plot is they're going to go wipe them off the face of the earth, right? We got to get rid of the werewolves. We got to get rid of the vampires. All of a sudden, Selene is now in captivity, right? And it turns out Michael is probably dead. And all of a sudden now she's got a daughter she didn't know about. How do you not know you had a daughter, right? So what? I somehow, whatever. So Antigen Corp, which is this big corporation that they kind of hint at throughout the series here, actually secretly, spoiler alert, is run by Lycans. All right. So the guys at the top of the food chain in this corporation are actually secretly werewolves, and they're trying to develop a super werewolf. So, of course, they know that Michael was a hybrid. This is another thing that drives me crazy about the latter half of this series is everything's about hybrid this and hybrid that. You got all these different hybrid creatures. It's like, what you got one werewolf who's gigantic, another werewolf who's part vampire, part werewolf, another guy who's got a human head, werewolf body. It's like, what the fuck? And the daughter is a hybrid. They never explain how or what. So when she turns into what she turns into, she doesn't look like either one. It's just crazy. So anyway, the story is they're trying to develop a super werewolf here. This one is actually action-packed. There's a good amount of gore in this one, but the story is a mess. The CGI werewolves, when they're on screen, look terrible. Practical effects are good. I mean, Craig mentioned, Charles Dance is in, or maybe Jamie mentioned Charles Dance is in the last two films. He's amazing, but he's completely wasted. They don't use. I mean, he's in a few scenes here, but not long enough. You got Theo James from Divergent, right? Kind of a strange, person to have in this particular series, but
a young adult. I knew he belonged in a young adult film.
Yeah,
I didn't know he was in that.
Yeah, I think they were trying to play off his success in that series, and it didn't really work out here. So I had a hard time with this one as opposed to the last one. I think they're both equally bad. There's a couple of things I like slightly better in the last film, which I'll get to in a minute. Mets must be doing good. My wife is going berserk in the next room. But yeah, I'm going to go with Awakening. The fourth film is my number 5, and back to Chris.
All right. Yep. My number 4 is what Pete just said, and yeah, I would agree with everything Pete said. 2012's Underworld Awakening, which made some money. It had a $70 million budget and made 160 million worldwide. But I agree with everything Pete said. But man, this is the one where they really killed it with the CGI werewolves. I mean, 1, 2, and 3, they didn't go nuts with it, but for 4 and 5, it is just overwhelming that it's animated werewolves and it looks like shit. And like Pete said, the plot is ridiculous. The whole thing is with the daughter, and okay, they have her, and then it goes nowhere. They have nothing to fucking do with her. And that's the only thing maybe they never said it, Pete, like how they got the daughter, but I always just assumed that Celine was pregnant and didn't know it. So I always just assumed they, before they put him in a deep freeze, they figured out she was pregnant and took it out of her. But what do I know? I mean, I also thought, well, wait a second, she's dead. Vampires are dead. So how can a vampire get pregnant and give birth? And there's in all these movies, right?
So
all
this
these
is a reflection.
All these vampires, they're all talking about my mother, my father, and it doesn't make any sense because, well, wait, how is it you're a vampire and your father, Charles Dance, is a vampire? And
if you are a vampire and you bite someone and they turn into a vampire, you are the parent now, right?
I think they tried to make their own.
You don't give birth
in a way. They're trying to make.
And then they had the whole like dead zone type thing where every time you bite somebody, you see like all the.
Oh right, yes. Now you can suddenly read their memories. They just keep doing that.
And it's like, where the fuck does that come from?
But wait, also Celine was also kept biting Michael to save his life because she's got the vampire.
How convenient! You always go, you don't go like that. Here, suck on this.
Unlike Craig, I wasn't drunk when I watched 1, 2, and 3, and I'm like, wait a second, like it seemed like, and I'm not that big of a fan, and I wasn't going to look it up, but it seemed like the history of the whole werewolf thing just changed between the first 3 movies.
Yeah, you don't know who's the good guy, who am I supposed to.
Well, that's true too. Who you're supposed to root for. It's definitely not clear cut.
Here's the thing about that, because that's a really good point. We all have to like Celine, right? Because she is portrayed as the only one who has any redeeming anything. But they make almost every single vampire in all these films really unlikable. So
they're all conniving, they're all backstabbing,
constantly. They're all reprehensible beings, right? So it's almost like, and granted, I like werewolves better than vampires anyway, so I'm always going to go for the werewolves. But you almost have to side with the Lycans in these films because the vampire characters are just.
We're scumbags.
But then they made Marius in part 5, the werewolf leader. He was a dick.
He was a dick, but up until that point,
but Lucian was Michael Sheen, from the earlier movies. I mean, he was pretty good. And,
he's terrific.
He's like the hero of the part of the third one, prequel. So, but yeah, sorry.
So all right, so cool. So you got
So
you can interchange either one of these in 4 or 5, in my opinion.
Actually, Pete, I almost thought about flipping a coin because they're both so bad. Like,
I was kind of the same way. I kept going back and forth.
Which one is worse? But ultimately, I went with 5 being worse because I thought the concept of the daughter was kind of a cool concept, and I'm like, wow, she's like 4 years older now, and in reality, she was like. She's a pretty girl because she's like an 18-year-old playing a 12-year-old in the 4th one. Right. So when 4 years later, I'm like, okay, cool. They could, slutty her up and put her in a sexy outfit now because, now she's really 20-something years old. But nope, they just fucking talk about her the whole time.
Right. Where is she? To find her. And nothing. There's absolutely no payoff with that whatsoever.
And then... then reality clicks in and I'm like, well, wait a second. Is there a reason there's not a hot 22-year-old in leather? Because Kate Beckinsale is like, fuck that. I'm the star of this series. Yeah. I don't want some cute young broad coming in upstaging me and taking over the series. I mean, I don't know. But I'm like, all right. So that's why I went with 4.
One thing about part 4. One thing though about part 4, I could get to it when I get to it, but she's supposed to be knocked out for 12 years, and she's laying there. Oh, thank God her fucking clothes are sitting
that was funny.
right there.
Right there. They got her boots, her outfit.
Got a locker. Whenever you get up, you
And her
do
hair
all
looks
things
great.
right.
Her hair looks great. She doesn't have big
Yeah,
head.
it didn't grow. It didn't grow an inch.
No.
Yeah.
But I tell you, I didn't like the wigs that they gave her in 4 and 5. And then I'm like, in real life, I mean, of course, she's a beautiful lady. She's got really long hair. I'm like,
Yeah.
why didn't you just let her have fucking long hair in 4 and 5?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously,
What
if she can give birth and get pregnant, her hair must grow because she's alive.
What I did want to see in part 4 was like an Austin Powers scene where she's like taking a piss for like 12 minutes, for like 20 minutes because she's been knocked out for the last 12 years.
Like Austin
He's like,
Powers.
hold on, guys.
I didn't think of that.
But immediately she gets up, puts on her boots, and she's like
ready to go.
She's hoofing out of there and looking great.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right, Jamie, what do you got? Number 4.
I will say on Blood Wars, I think it starts off with a good idea, how she's supposed to train the recruits. And I'm like, okay, train the recruits, then it's a race to go find the daughter. That's your movie. And then they do that stupid spin, and then it's all from there. They had the movie right there, and they literally dropped it.
Yeah, I got tired of the whole vampires all backstabbing each other.
Oh, it
gets old
throughout the whole series.
Yep. It's like, how many times is Randy Savage going to turn on Hulk Hogan? And you just keep fucking doing it over and over again.
100%.
Come on.
The NWO.
Yep.
I'm going Awakenings next. I think it's a little better. It's like a 2-star movie for me. I'm not gonna flip a coin on the last one and the second to last one. I'm gonna go with Awakening, a solid number 4 spot. I saw it. I was looking at my movie diary, and I marked it as I saw it in 3D IMAX.
Wow.
I don't remember that at all. I mean, it couldn't have been shot with IMAX cameras. So they just throw a regular old movie on an IMAX screen. I mean, this was
they do all the time. Yeah.
Still with all those breathtaithingly shitty colors, though.
The blues and the blacks just popping in 3D. When it starts off, I find it interesting that it starts off in the same exact shot that part 3 ends. You don't notice that shit until you watch them all in a row. Like we said, everyone's now aware of the existence of these guys, and it's like,
we're all cool.
How did it take you so long, everyone? They're running around all the time. Charles Dance wasted again. You got Tywin Lannister there. He's on the set. Give him something to do. No, he does nothing. I will say it's a little bit more gory, a little bit. And they got the, I hate needles. And they got a needle in the eye scene. And man, do I hate that shit. I would say Celine's a little bit more ruthless in this. If you're rooting for her, she seems a little bit less likable. I mean, she throws a guy out a window that probably didn't deserve it, a human guy.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? The Super Lycan, for being this kind of movie without Spielberg money or Marvel money, and for being 10 years ago, I don't think it looks that bad for this kind of movie a decade ago. Maybe I'm more forgiving. I don't know. But this is what's so funny about this movie for me. So I'm watching it here again last week, and it ends so abruptly. Like she starts the narration, the ending narration, it comes out of nowhere. The movie's over? Huh. Well, it's good news, I guess, because it's over, but it's surprisingly. But it's the most forgettable movie of the bunch because I remember the good ones. I always remember the bad ones. These 2-star movies, they're out of my memory pretty quickly. So yeah, I mean, like we said, the last 2 are kind of shitty, but I like the first 3.
And also, they spend so much time in the 4th movie talking about how the humans are all knowing what's going on with them. And then there's none in the 5th movie at all.
Nope.
Oh, no.
They're back to just the vampires and the Lycans.
The vampires and the werewolves. That's it. Yeah.
It's like
Continuing saga.
They farted that 5th one out, man.
Yeah.
All right, Craig, you're number 4.
All right, next one is number 2, Evolution. I hated that one too. All right, and now
I hated all of them.
I hated it only slightly less. And what's funny is each movie is progressively shorter. Then the first one's 2 hours, and then by the time you get to the fifth movie, that's not even an hour and a half. I mean, they're just like, oh, fuck this, it's just like werewolves and vampires. But the second one, I'll give a few points for Marcus, the one vampire. He looked cool. He had the devil. He looked almost like a devil flying around and everything. But I mean, no, as I said for the first movie, nobody looks like they're having any fun in this movie. But there was one guy in the second movie who was that guy Tanis. He's a banging vampire whores, in that. And of course, and as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, okay. First, thank God, finally some boobs, and second of all, somebody's having some fun in this.
He's
and then
drinking.
And then I was like, there's no way he's going to live out of this movie to continue. And he doesn't. Spoiler alert. I don't care. But he's
in a prequel.
William, the twin brother werewolf of Marcus, who's like walled up somewhere, but for how many hundreds of years? But he's kind of thin when they break him out. But I mean, he with that and. Well, I don't know what Derek Jacobi is in this movie. What I don't know why. It's like another person his stature. It's like, what are you doing here? The one of the things that really annoyed me is just that there's like no consequences to anything in this. Where I mean, Scott Speedman, who I hated in this movie, he's just like he barely has a pulse in any of this. But it's like, I mean, he gets killed. I mean, he's dead. I mean, where he's like impaled with like a telephone pole or something. You know what? Yeah, she just goes over and squeezes some blood on there. He's right in about an hour. And he's back fighting again. It's just you're shooting the living shit out of the vampire. The guy. Marcus flying right next to her. She's like shooting the hell out of him and like nothing happens. It reminded me, I said to my wife, I said, it's like when you're a kid and, my brother and I, we'd play like war, play with like toy guns, and it was the 70s and 80s. So we did stuff like that, and you shoot, oh, I got you, you're dead. This shirt, I'm bulletproof with this shirt on. That's exactly what it was with this. No matter what you did, it was like they wouldn't die. Werewolves are killed by silver. No, you shoot them, and if it only goes through a little bit, and it looks like they're pinching a loaf, and all the bullets fall out, or something, and it's like nothing is as it should be. I mean, Celine and Michael fuck in a shipping container in part 2. I mean, they have no chemistry. It's like right after he got done saving her from being fried, it's like, you know what? Let's go bang in this shipping container here because it's dark in there. I mean, it's just, you're supposed to assume that her character she's been around for hundreds of years, and I would, she was the most best looking vampire that I've seen. You would think she'd have her pick of like vampire cock, and she settles on this fucking loser. So I mean, I just, by the time and then the end of the movie, it's like, oh now she drinks the blood or whatever of Derek Jacobi, so now she's immune to sunlight and she can just go walk out in the sun like everybody else. And that it's like, I mean,
they make up the rules as they go along.
Yeah, they're just like urinating over on top of everything you ever knew as a vampire or a werewolf or whatever. So now my number 2 is Evolution. The 4 is Evolution, which is the second movie.
All right, so my number 4 is Blood Wars, the last one. Again, could be the worst. It's for me.
Flip that coin.
Yeah, flip the coin. I mean, it's got some good action. It's got lots of fighting and stuff like that. But as we've mentioned, the CGI is terrible. I also think what's really weird in this film, and even in the fourth film, it's like you got all these vampires running around. You don't see any of them biting anybody to feed. Aren't vampires?
I was just going to say that. Do we ever see Celine fucking bite somebody and eat like everybody else?
No.
And how many times there's the line is, oh, you have to feed, right? But we never see her drink blood,
Didn't
right?
they say something about like them eating animals or something like in the sewers?
I don't even remember.
Is that in one of them where it in part 4, I think it was, when you run into the Divergent guy because he's like living in the sewers or something? I don't know.
So yeah, I don't know. This movie's a mess. Like I said, the continuity is just all over the place. All of a sudden now the daughter's not there, and she's like this super vampire, and she's training the troops. And then of course the other chick, whatever her name is, Samira, is kind of hot. She's like she's got other plans because you killed Victor, and it's just it just drives me crazy. And then it just ends abruptly, and you're like, all right, whatever. So I don't know. A mess of a movie. I like all the other three, but these last two are just like have lots of issues. So back to Chris, number 3.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was another good thing. That I think they had the most pretty girls in part 5.
Easily.
Yes.
There wasn't enough nudity, but they definitely had the best looking girls.
Yeah, they all look great. Yeah.
When they go to Vampire Sweden, yeah.
Yeah. But all right, of the first 3, which I all saw in the theater, this was the one that I walked out angry. I'm like, this kind of sucked. I remember, at least I remember drinking at a buddy's house, and then we went to go see it, and we brought beers in, but I did not like this movie. I think it's boring and shitty, and it's 2006's Underworld Evolution, which is the second in the series. It's basically a road movie, or while I rewatched it the other day, and I've only seen this twice, once in 2006, and I rewatched it like 2 days ago, and I'm like, did what's his name from fucking the guy that did Star Wars: The Force Awakens? The fuck's his name? I got the olds, I can't remember. But yeah, who directed Force Awakens?
I can't
J.J.
remember.
Abrams?
J.J. Abrams. I'm like,
Yes.
Did J.J.
I forgot he
Abrams
did that. Yeah.
I'm like, did J.J. Abrams write this fucking movie? Because the whole movie is a mystery box movie. So we've got our 2 heroes, and they've got to go find this outhouse. And so they go, and they're looking for something. And then they're like, okay, we got to split up, but only for a couple minutes. And then they got to team up again. And then they're like, okay, we got to go here now. And then they go here, and they're like, we got to find this guy. And this guy's like, well, I can't help you, but you go see this other guy and he'll help you. And so then they go see that guy. And that guy's like, oh yeah, here's this thing that you need to fight off the other thing.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the whole fucking movie, like the main bad guy vampire, he'll show up and he'll fight our heroes for like 3 to 5 minutes, and they'll fight him off and he'll just get away. But then 10 minutes later, he tracks him again so they can fight for like 3 to 5 minutes, and they just get away. I'm like, this is fucking stupid. and it ends in basically a tag team match with Celine and Michael against Marcus and the cool-looking white werewolf that's been cooped up for 500 years, William.
That is a cool looking werewolf.
It's awesome looking werewolf, and thankfully it's not that CGI-ish, but the fight kind of sucks. And then it just fucking ends. I thought Scott Speedman and Kate Beckinsale had a little bit of chemistry in the first movie, but to Jamie's credit, because he mentioned it first, I think they have zero fucking zero chemistry in this movie. Like, they didn't even fucking like each other. Like, they didn't even like each other's sexes, like whatever. And maybe that's why they kept splitting them up. But yeah, I thought this movie was boring and pointless. And like, it just seemed to me like they had no fucking direction. They didn't know what to do. So it's a mystery box movie. Let's go here, then let's go here, or a video game movie. Let's go here. Let's fight this boss. Let's pick up this object. Okay, now you got to go here, pick up this object. I fucking hated this movie.
And you got to get that necklace so it unlocks the door to get this thing.
And then you get this and go there, and I can't help you, but this other guy will help you. It's like, wait, what? So yeah, to me, it was a video game map.
Jamie.
We were talking some shit on these movies. It's been like, what?
They're not great.
Going on
They're not
45 minutes
great.
and no one said a good thing yet. I'm going with Evolution next. You know, look, on paper, I should hate these fucking movies. On paper, I should. I watch them sometimes and I go, why do I like these? I don't even know why I like them.
I was gonna say, wait, you rewatch these?
Yeah. You know what? I watched the first 2 about 5 months ago, and then I rewatched them for this, and I had a good time. And I shouldn't be, but I am for some reason. I turn off the brain. But you know what? These movies they're more involving the plot sometimes than they need to be. You know,
Well, like
it's just
soap operas.
vampires fighting werewolves, and you got to have the double crossing and this and the lore. And sometimes you're like, can we just fight over something? Make it more straightforward of a movie sometimes. But there's a cool factor to the first three, I think. Like we said, William, the white Lycan looks really cool. And yeah, let's harp on it a little bit more. Kate Beckinsale and Scott Stapp, zero chemistry. I mean, I don't know
Wait,
what Scott Stapp is doing in this. I mean, they didn't
the
let
guy
him
from,
off the bridge.
The guy from
Creed.
Creed.
I'm
The
gonna
guy
be a
from
movie
Creed.
star.
Them neither.
Yeah. I mean, the dude looks just like the dude from Creed.
He
It's
does,
almost
actually.
distracting when
He's
I
probably
see
a stunt double.
right. And they're both look like, I mean, we know Scott Stapp is a douche, and this guy, his character at least has douche written all over it.
All brooding.
Why do I like it? You know, that is a very good question. And one of these days I'm going to find the answer to why I like, especially this one. I think I like the blue and the black, you know. I understand that it's very dull and cold and heartless, but sometimes I like it. And yeah, I have fun with this one. So here's something interesting. Rotten Tomatoes, I like to go on there sometimes and just look. The audience, now the critics, 17%.
No
The
doubt.
audience, I don't think I've seen a gap like this ever. The audience is 72%. That's a 55% difference.
Wow.
So right there, I wonder, you know, of that 72%, I'm going to say 71.5% is like me going, I don't know why I like it either, man, but I kind of do.
Well, it's rated R. Maybe she'll be nude. Maybe she'll drop the laundry.
Yeah.
No, I know she ain't going to do that. But
Yep.
I heard that it's a lot of work for her used to be a lot of work for her to get into that. I read that somewhere, like a lot of work.
No doubt. All right, Craig.
All right, my next one is Awakening. This is my number 3 is the fourth movie, Awakening, that you guys have mentioned enough. But I didn't see it really coming that the doctor guy played by Stephen Ray was actually a werewolf. I didn't really see that coming. And it's like, you know, that's a nice little you know, plot twist there. But you know, again, it's like they wanted her daughter, the Lycans wanted Eve, the daughter, so that they could, you know, make them immune to silver. And it's like, wait, they already sort of are immune to silver. You know, it's like, well, if it doesn't penetrate their bloodstream, that they're totally cool. So yeah, and again, as we mentioned about, you know, she's, you know, frozen or whatever, cryogenically frozen for 12 years, but you know, luckily her clothes are within reach. As Jamie had mentioned, Charles Dance, his character's name's Thomas, you know, the father of David, kind of wasted in the movie. You know, he's not, and especially in the actually in both of them, he's really not in them very much. You know, and in the fourth one is the one where he kind of he totally like chickens out, or it's like, you know, hey, we can stand here and fight. You know what? I don't really want to. and he just kind of leaves. But so yeah, I rank this one a little bit higher, only for the semi plot twist and that, and I think that some of the fight scenes towards the end the one guy gets like his head, the werewolf gets his head ripped off, you know, at the end, and somebody else gets their head is, there's a lot more gore in this one at least, but yeah, it's still not that great, but I have it as my number 3.
My number 3, I'm going to go with Underworld, the first film. I think it's a strong debut. Kate Beckinsale looks great. My main issue with this film, and it was like I saw this in the theaters and I walked away, I was like, all right, that was fun, but man, it's just like how many more Matrix type things are they going to do in this film? It just was way too Matrixy at spots. And I thought there's too much guns. I don't want to see vampires running around using guns and machine guns and shit. It's just like, to me, it's like it just took too much away from the whole vampire lore. to see them so reliant on guns all the time. And it seemed like the Lycans were way too easy to kill in this first movie. You know, like they have this centuries old war between the two species, yet it seems like almost the whole movie, they're just blowing the Lycans away left and right. It seemed, you know, like fairly easily, but really action-packed film, lots of violence, which is cool. Yeah, you got Michael the hybrid, yeah, blah blah blah, whatever. Him and Celine, I never really liked that relationship either, but she's really badass here. And I think the guy Shane Brawley, who plays Craven, who's like the real evil vampire in this film, I think he does a really good job. I think he's one of the better like villains in this entire series. But you know, he's in the first film, and that's basically it. So. But yeah, that's my number 3, Underworld, first one. Back to Chris.
All right, my number 2 is number 1. I'm going with Underworld. From 2003, which started it off at $22 million budget, made $95 million worldwide, and a lot of I read that. Apparently, you know, not only was it the Romeo Juliet storyline, but basically, I forget what studio did it, Lionsgate or whoever. They were like, all right, after Resident Evil was such a big hit, they're like, well, we need something like that. And apparently Underworld, at least the first 4 made money, but they never reached the heights for whatever reason of Resident Evil. But I think the first movie's pretty good. I agree with everything Pete said, a little too Matrixy. When some of the times when Celine jumps around, it's a little too ballet-ish. I don't mind the guns because I like gunplay, but it was a lot. It did kind of remind me of like the Matrix, or the what influenced the Matrix, the John Woo Chinese action movies. But I think it's pretty good. But yeah, I like the third one a little better. So yeah, I'm going with number 1 for my number 2.
Gotcha. All right, Jamie.
I'm going with Underworld at number 2 too. I like the guns. I think it's kind of cool and different. I could see, you know, it's not strict vampire lore, and I could see how it can be kind of silly that they're relying on guns, but I think it adds something different that other movies doesn't have. But I never saw Resident Evil. Do vampires have guns in that, or is it humans with guns trying to kill vampires?
It's zombies, actually.
Like zombies.
Yeah.
Zombies, yeah. Oh yeah, I played the video game. I should know that. Yes, it is zombies. I like how it kind of starts off creating its own myth, you know, kind of breaking rules that we're used to. I like the silver nitrate bullets. I like the idea of that. I love Bill Nighy in these movies. He adds this class to it, an almost Shakespearean aspect to it. I think he's great as the actor. I don't know if I would like these 2 movies, I have it 1 and 2, half as much without him. And I love when I saw this, man, I watched this one on regular DVD. I think I rented when it first came out on a tube TV, old school tube TV. And it stuck with me, his death. Bill Nighy's death at the end with his head gets, you know what? I think the makers love that death so much too, because at the beginning of every sequel, we see it over and over in the recaps, because they do recaps like the first 4 or 5 Friday the 13th movies.
I was going to say similar to the Friday the 13th. Yep.
Yeah, they do a recap. And but yeah, I think he steals the show. I think his fight with Nightcrawler, Scott Stapp, is really cool. You know, he looks like Scott Stapp, a little bit like Nightcrawler from the X-Men minus the tail. Yeah, so it's a solid movie. It has it even has rewatchability to me. I enjoy watching it again. Like I said, I saw it twice within about 5 months. So there you go.
Craig.
Craig will never see these movies.
No, he won't.
Well, that's why, you know, and my number 2 is number 5, Blood Wars. And after now the only reason I am, and
5 beers out of 5.
This is not a good movie, but the only reason why is because after I told you I was you know, I blew 3 of these movies out in one day.
He was so excited the series was over. This one's going to rank really high for me.
I was, you know, I had been drinking, and I was like, oh, this one's the shortest. All right, that's good. And then I'm watching it, and you know, and then Samira pops up. Oh, now I'm interested. That is why I have that her and Lena, the Nordic Coven warrior,
yeah.
blonde woman.
Oh, yeah.
Those two are the
Who's
only
cute.
reason why I have this. Those two women are the only reason why I have this ranked a little bit higher. The rest of the movie is basically pretty stupid. Dumbest thing to me was the it's almost like right out of Spaceballs. They give David has a ring that says you're a prince. and it says, well, you have one drop of blood, one drop. They say that several times, one drop of
It was a
blood.
fucking
of
enormous
Amelia.
drop.
But yet 7 people like sample this and, oh yeah, well, I guess your mom is really Amelia. And I'm like, what in the fuck are you doing? I mean, that was totally ridiculous. And it's like, oh yeah, Amelia, the one that they bumped off in the first movie, like, really quick that you didn't even know. It's like, oh, she's actually supposed to be a vampire elder who's really important to all these movies. And it's almost like they said, you know what, let's make her a little bit more important. For number 5 here, we'll make her, the guy from Divergent's mom. So, but yeah, the whole thing with Kate Beckinsale when she goes under the ice and then she comes back with a great new cut and color. Now that she's like part Swedish now or whatever.
Water is the key.
She's got blonde highlights now, so it's like, wow, she looks pretty good. And even it's nice cut and color there. So yeah, the only reason I rank this a little bit higher is because this had a higher hot chick quotient than the other movies. So and it was the shortest. So I'm going with Blood Wars as my number 2.
It's such a short movie, and they do like 7 minutes of previous
Flashbacks
in the beginning.
Yeah.
So it's really short.
Yeah.
All right, my number 2 is Evolution, the second film. I enjoy this film quite a bit. I like it better than the debut, the first film. I agree with some of the points that Chris made earlier about how it's kind of formulaic, kind of like it's just they're constantly going on these journeys and whatnot. But there's a couple scenes that for me really work. I think the scene where the vampire who's in kind of bat form is chasing them in the truck. I love that scene.
That is really cool.
Really well.
The best scene in the movie.
Yeah, really well done. That might be my favorite scene in the entire series.
Whenever they show his wings fold from the back, it looked pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really well done. I think the special effects in this film are really, really well done. I like the final battle too. I love the White Werewolf, William. I think he looks absolutely terrific. And it's a little kind of like, WWE battle at the end, tag team type of thing, but I don't care. I mean, I think it's got great special effects, good amount of gore. The werewolf costumes in this movie look really, really good. The masks and all the stuff look really good. A lot of action in this film, a little on the long side, but again, it just kind of works for me. So to me, my top 2 are fairly close, but I think my number 1, which I think we all have the same, really surprised me when it came out. I don't want to blow up anybody's spot here. So Chris, why don't you talk about Rise of the Lycans?
Yeah, I was going to say that's shockingly my favorite. I remember seeing this in the theater and I was a little unsure. And I was like, wow, it was fucking great.
Yeah.
I mean, the only, it could be argued that the only woman hotter than Kate Beckinsale in this series is Rhoda Mitra. She is fucking gorgeous. And I already liked her previously because I'd seen her in the Invisible Man and a couple other things. Doomsday. She's amazing. That's a great. That could be the greatest bad movie of all time. I love that movie. But yeah, I also love the fact that it's and one thing I had completely forgotten about until I rewatched it. When I rewatched Underworld 1, I thought it was completely fucking genius that there's these flashbacks, but Rhoda Mitra is in the flashback. And I was like, holy shit. And then they didn't get to her story with Lucian, the werewolf guy, till the third movie. And yeah, it was definitely a bold move doing a prequel now without Kate Beckinsale, but this movie still did really well. It cost $35 million budget and did $92 million worldwide. But I also love that it's a a love story, but it's also a tragic love story. And I really dug that it's the medieval setting. So instead of the guns and fucking bazookas
Yes.
and cars, it's horses and crossbows and catapults
Castles, yep.
and castles and swords and shields. And it's like it's almost like a Lord of the Rings, but with werewolves and vampires.
And the Lycans really were the basis for the story.
Yes.
This is mostly their story.
Absolutely.
Never got before.
Totally. And you totally know who to root for in this movie because they are the slaves and, you know, they're getting shit on and beat up and killed. So yeah, I think that for me, and when I rewatched them all, I'm like, yeah, the third one is definitely the one that I liked the most. I wish Rona Mitra would have got naked in this, but she does show some skin in other movies, so we're gonna let that go. But yeah, of the five, that's my favorite. 2009's Underworld Rise of the Lycans, which was definitely the last one that I can say definitively, yeah, I saw that in the theater. I'm not sure about 4, and I definitely didn't see 5.
I might have seen 4 in the theater.
I think Jamie could be like the only guy that saw 5 in the theater.
I definitely did. Yeah.
At the box office, it pulled in $10.50. Mine.
Jamie, you got anything more to say about Rise of the Lycans?
Well, I thought I was going to be the only one that had it at number 1, to be honest. I thought everyone was going to have the first one at number 1. No, I saw this in the theater, you know, and it's the first one I saw in the theater. And when I left, I said, that was theater worthy. I think I'm all in with this franchise. I think this shit is my shit, man. And then the next one came out. I'm like, yeah, I'll give it one last shot with the 5th one. I'm out. But yeah, this has all the coolness that I liked about the first 2, plus chemistry. We got chemistry with the 2 leads. You understand why they like one another. I think Rona Mitra looks good, but I don't think she looks as good as Kate Beckinsale. Not as good.
That's a close fight. That's a close fight.
Michael Sheen, I think, is great in this movie. It's so funny how they got everyone to always come back for these movies, even if it was like 10 minutes to die in the beginning. I don't know if they were under contract or if they just said, hey, we're making another one. Want to come back? Sure. I love doing this shit. I have no idea how that went.
And here's a question, because I don't know the answer, but right, Michael Sheen is the one that plays Luchin, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like when I watched them back to back, I'm like, well, I don't know if they did CGI, but he actually looks older in Underworld, and I wondered if they put like more makeup on him because he looked younger in the third one. I was like, I don't know what they did, but he looks fucking great. He looks more youthful in that third one, which again,
savageness to them, right?
Yes.
Great shape, yeah.
And it's,
you have to wonder if they had planned to do that prequel when they did.
They must have, because I mean, Rona Mitra is in the first one.
Yeah.
I mean, I was shocked when I rewatched it. I'm like, I don't remember this at all.
Did they really make the first one and said, we're making at least 3 more, baby?
I mean,
How would they?
Unless they were thinking maybe they would do the prequel second, but then everybody would get confused maybe, so they pushed it back once more. But she's in it. When I rewatched the first one, I was like, holy shit, that's Rona Mitra.
And how many years were between the first and third films released?
First one was 2003. Third one was 2009.
It's not a terribly
Third
long
one was 9, yeah.
Yes, so 6 years.
3, 6, 9, 12, and 16.
Yeah.
You get a lot of Bill Nighy on this too, and I love him. And you know what he reminds me of? I was watching this last week. His character reminds me of a cross between the Emperor from Star Wars, Palpatine, and Gary Oldman's Dracula. If you took those two, put them together, you got his character. What's his name again? Victor. Yes.
Yep.
I love how it ends, kind of like a mini Braveheart, but it's vampires and werewolves instead. So yeah,
the scenes with him
that's a
and
great
movie. Father and daughter are great. The scenes between father and daughter in that film really, really good.
I'll tell you this: I saw it in a very cheap theater that's not around anymore. It's such a dingy place, and there's that scene where Michael Sheen is in the cell, and they throw down the key to him, and he catches it. You don't see the key, and someone yelled behind me, "It's the key!" There you go, Sherlock. Idiot. I'll never forget that. So yeah, cool.
Cool. Craig, what do you, anything?
One I hate least.
Yeah, no, well, well, at least I remember, since I never saw any of these movies going into it. I didn't know that number 3 was a prequel, but then as soon as it starts, it was like, oh, thank God. Well, as Pete had said, I had gun fatigue from the first 2 movies, and that it was like, oh, no more fucking shoot 'em ups, and I was like, okay, good. There's swords and crossbows and horses, and okay, good. And then the other thing was that, it's like they already told you what the story was. I mean, I was like, I know how this movie's going to end.
Yeah.
They already told
I told you in the first one.
So I was like, all right, I got this. I mean, I think I can get through this movie without, wanting to kill myself. So I mean, it was, it's like, oh, you got to make sure you grab the necklace from her, since that was a plot point of number 2, and everything. So, but yeah, I thought the fight scenes at least were much more engaging for me personally to watch. As you guys have all said, chemistry between the male and female leads was finally. It's like this is a Romeo and Juliet story, not the first 2 movies, where it's tragic and and whatnot. And you have the jerk father, and everything. And it's like, and again, you got to make sure that at the end of the movie that it's like, well, in the first movie he's sleeping, so somehow in this movie he's not dead. So you got to find a way to make sure that he's taking a nap for the next 500 years or whatever. So, but yeah, this one was the closest to that I could enjoy out of all these movies. Sorry to say,
it's a simple story too. It's straightforward,
yeah,
not convoluted at all.
I knew who to root for. It's like, oh, I really feel bad. I mean, you already knew this. Again, this was established 2 movies prior, but it was like, okay, I feel bad for these, the werewolves are slaves and everything. And so, yeah, it was just a little bit more of a coherent movie for me to watch, especially never having seen any of these before. So
They brought back the black guy with the weird voice. I mean,
oh, yeah, that's his real voice.
I thought he was the guy from Dodgeball.
Yes.
Seriously?
I Googled it. Yes. People were
I
shocked
did
when they see him at Comic Cons.
I did
really
too,
talks like
because
that.
I thought
That's
it was
crazy.
the guy from Dodgeball. This was Michelle, my the big guy. I thought it was the same guy, and then it's like I Googled that, and it's like, no, it's not the same guy from Dodgeball. But
He's got the deepest voice ever.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
crazy. I thought that was fake.
It sounds like it's coming from down here,
Yeah.
Oh,
It's amazing how they bring these people back, like Marvel brings people back for a second here or there in movies,
Yep.
Good job, well done on that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the third one, Rise of the Lycans. I remember like leaving the theater, seeing that, and I was like, wow, that was really good. I mean, it just hit all the sweet spots for me. I thought the acting was terrific, the cast was great, the special effects were really good, the makeup was good. I love the ending scene where the Lycans all break out of the castle, right? They're free from slavery and whatnot. You root for the werewolves. I love werewolves. So yeah, and I thought Rona Mitra was great in this. Love the chemistry between her and Lucian. Really good film. And I love the setting. I like the fact that it was hundreds of years ago, and I think it worked really, really well. It's a really good looking film too.
And critics still hate that one.
Doesn't it get you mad though? Doesn't it get you mad though, seeing it's like how he's killed and how Lucian is killed in the first one, and it's like, oh, he's such a heroic.
Yeah, they
character
should have
in the
left
third
him.
movie.
They should have had, like
And
Pete said too, Craven was a really good bad guy. They should have had more of him. Although then he's in the third one, right? But does he come back? But his
He
hair
might be
looks
at the-
different
he
or
might be-
something.
I think he's at the very end. He might be the one who puts Victor in the
Yeah, I forget.
in the
but-
phone booth or whatever.
But wait, right, and he gets killed in the beginning of the second one, right? Craven, like he gets
Yeah,
shot in
right
the
away.
face or something. And I remember going, "Well, that's a fucking waste of a good character."
Yeah. He showed up for his paycheck and was out the door.
Well, Tanis, the guy who was banging the vampire whores in part 2, was the only one who knew their secret in part 3. So, you know,
Right. Yep.
he had a role to play, at least. So they gave him a little bit more something to do in the third movie as well.
Yeah. What's really interesting, and I never knew this, I was reading about it the other day, is that Celine's character was based on a mutant character from Marvel Comics.
I didn't know that either.
Which one?
Same name.
So named Celine, but she's not really a vampire. But the whole thing with her being able to, like, when she bites someone, she can read their minds and all this kind of stuff. The Marvel character is not really a vampire, but has that power as well. So they
Interesting.
Marvel. Yeah, they do. She was a mutant, and she kind of looks the same. And they took that character and developed this whole story, making her a vampire. It's
But
really
they didn't pay Marvel anything.
I don't know. That I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, kind of
I
weird.
did not know that. Yeah, I don't. That must have been after I stopped collecting, because I don't remember. But I never really read that much of it was New Mutants.
I don't know if it was New Mutants, but it was like she was
One
like
of those X books.
Yeah.
That I never read either.
Yeah.
I never read the X-Men.
So kind of interesting little footnote.
Yeah, no, that is. I did not know that.
So there you have it, everybody. Underworld ranked,
What was it,
all five of them.
6 years later, we still don't have a part 6.
No.
I don't think they're doing one.
Well, the funny thing is, I read that in 2016, what's her name? Kate Beckinsale was like, "Yeah, that's it, I'm done." But then I read an interview
2 years
from
ago.
2021, which, listen, let's be honest, we haven't seen much of her lately, and she's like, "Yeah, I'd be open to another one." Of course you would. 'Cause you want to
20
make
years later,
make
how's
the
she
money.
going to
Yeah.
look in that suit?
Yeah.
But listen, they already did put it in the snow and ice, and you put her in a,
And
cover her up a little bit.
And she was married to Michael Sheen. I didn't know that either. You know. It's
Well,
like
what's
Kate
even
Beckinsale.
weirder,
Yeah.
right? She was married to Michael Sheen, but she was also married to Len Weissman, who directed the first one. So
Yeah.
I
I think they had an affair during the filming. Yes.
So I think they split up at some point, but they must have obviously they stayed friendly with Michael Sheen because they kept bringing him back.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very strange.
If I were a betting man, I would say you will see another Underworld film.
Right. Or a TV series, because
Or a TV
She still
series.
looks great.
apparently that was looked at too, an Underworld TV series.
There's an animated movie of some
Yes, there is an animated film. Yeah.
Right.
I've never
It's a short though, right?
Is it
Yeah,
short?
shorts.
It's like a half hour, 45 minutes.
3 and 4 or something. Yeah.
But hey, there's a Resident Evil TV show now, right? So why couldn't
Right.
it be Underworld?
They rebooted Resident Evil, right? And then there's a Resident Evil TV show. So
Should I dive into that Resident Evil? Should I go into that world?
Some of the films are pretty good.
Okay.
There's some that are pretty bad.
it's very similar, right, Pete, to this. Some of them are good and some of them are fucking terrible.
Yeah, the first couple are pretty
First
good.
couple,
Is this-
particularly the second one, was the
The
one I
sec-
really liked.
It's good.
The second one, is that the one with the woman has like a tube top on the whole time, and she got big boobs and guns, and that's
The dark-haired one, yeah.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that's the second
Well, if we're gonna rank those, give me 2 weeks notice so I
That's
can
the-
get the box set. And...
Before we even think of that, coming up next week, we've got Terminator franchise. So stay tuned for that, ranking the films of Terminator. So, but let us know how you guys rank the Underworld films down below in the comments section. And we'll see you next week here on the Monsters Den. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube, all together.
All the damn
All the
time.
time. For Chris Allo, Jamie, Laszlo, and Craig Kaminski, I am Pete Pardo. Good night, everybody. See you tomorrow at the Funhouse with Martin Popoff. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.